Hello everyone, and welcome to this exclusive demonstration of Metasys Release 8.1. We're very excited to present this to you today, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us. My name is Jane Walmsley, and I'm a Product Marketing Manager at Johnson Controls, and I'm responsible for our Building Automation System portfolio. Today's agenda is very simple. We're going to spend just a few minutes talking through the new features and enhancements that are included in the Metasys 8.1 release, as well as provide a quick overview of the philosophy behind the design of the latest Metasys user interface. Then we'll spend the rest of today's session doing a live demonstration of Metasys 8.1. We have reserved 10 to 15 minutes at the end of today's session for questions and answers, but we encourage you to submit your questions via the chat or the Q&A panel at any point during today's presentation, and we'll do our best to address those at the end, time permitting. Also, just to let you know, a recording of today's session will be made available to you shortly after the live event, so you are able to share that with your colleagues who maybe weren't able to join you today. Before we get started, I wanted to introduce you to today's presenter, Ryan Piaskowski. Ryan is a Metasys product manager here at Johnson Controls, and he's responsible for managing the product lifecycle of the Metasys user interface, graphics, and reporting. Ryan has 10 years of experience in the controls industry and has held roles in software engineering and operations. He has a Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering from the Milwaukee School of Engineering. So with that, I will turn it over to Ryan.
Thanks for having me on the call today, Jane. Around 5 years ago, we did a lot of user research along with our user experience team, business analysts, and software developers. We sent resources out to a number of our customer sites. We sat down and watched how users interacted with Metasys on a daily basis. And what we found is that Metasys was hard to learn. It required a lot of clicks and navigation to get through the course of an action such as a hot and cold call. And what we really wanted to do is try to simplify that experience. We found that the site management portal pictured here, which is our engineering workstation that was originally released with this generation of Metasys, was kind of designed for engineers by engineers. But when we put it in front of newer users that are coming into the facility and operating for the first time, we found there's definitely a barrier to learning the software. It was a fully kind of capable interface, very powerful, but while we wanted to bring mobile aspects to the building automation system, we also wanted to try to design it in a way that's easier for users to learn and make them more productive at the same time. We took a step back and really wanted to look at how data was organized in the system. And we decided to go, based on research, with what we call the space-based navigation. So if you look at the right-hand side of the slide here, what you're seeing is that the data is organized around campus, building, wing, floor, room. We then map the associated mechanical systems, such as a VAV box or fan coil that serves a particular room, as well as the lighting system or any other system that might be integrated into Metasys through BACnet integrations. We then map that up to the mechanical system as well. So which air handlers serving which VAV box, and what are the plants doing. And I'll show you how this really provides us a unique view into the system and saves a lot of time when diagnosing issues. If you look at the left side of the screen today and you kind of look at where the industry's at in terms of building automation system user interfaces, a lot of the interfaces out there today are designed around the building network. In our case, that's a server, a supervisory controller, which is an NAE, the trunk, the field controller, and then the endpoints. And what we found is that graphics or user views or customized user experiences were being built on top of the building network. And we wanted to try to solve that problem while at the same time bringing mobility to the product as well. With Metasys 8.1, we're adding in additional features on top of the existing space and equipment-based framework. And what we found is that it works very nicely to place graphics and other features alongside and inside the equipment and spaces framework. And that allows for easier navigation and faster troubleshooting, identification of issues. You know, we realize that users that are using Metasys on a daily basis, they've got a lot of things to do in the course of their day. So we want them to get into the software and get out of the software, solve their problems as quickly as possible. The new graphics that we're rolling out along with Metasys 8.1 really complement that whole flow very nicely. In addition, we have other features such as IT security enhancements and increased BACnet support at this release of Metasys 8.1. But what we're really going to focus on for this webinar is the Metasys user interface enhancements. With Metasys 8.1, we're rolling out a brand new graphics package. This includes a full-blown symbol library and template library so that you can get started building graphics very quickly. We've gone with more of a photorealistic graphic in our template, so you'll see a lot of enhancements to the symbols and the templates themselves to make them look more visually appealing, attractive, and with better animations. In addition to the graphics library, we've rolled out a brand new graphics manager as well. This allows you to make associations, and I'll get into all this, but be able to assign graphics to spaces and equipment, be able to quickly create graphics from templates, and be able to edit those graphics on the fly, either online or offline within the system, and additional productivity enhancements that makes it easier to not only create the graphics, but to manage graphics longer term. Another capability we're adding to the system at Metasys 8.1 is the ability to leave notes when a user commands something, adjusts a set point, overrides something. I've been out to a number of customers, and all of them has asked for this feature. So we'll show you that in the demo. It's really a nice feature to let users know who's doing what and why in the Metasys system, and that just goes to help build the picture of what's going on when we're diagnosing problems. We're also increasing capability in our trending viewer, in our custom trend viewer, and we'll go into that as well into the demo. But just a lot of good capability from the graphics, the notes on the commands, as well as our trend enhancements that are coming into Metasys release 8.1. So with that, what I'd like to do is walk you through a demo of the new features and how they really integrate with our equipment and space-based framework that we rolled out in subsequent versions of the Metasys user interface. So I've flipped over to my web browser, and I've typed in the address to the Metasys server. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in as Ryan. And right away, what I've done is logged into the campus of the facility. So when we first log in, the system brings us to the campus. I have a campus dashboard set up on this particular Metasys site. It shows kind of a high-level overview of the critical systems in the facility. We can navigate to those systems from here if we see anything wrong as well. A lot of times you might see energy dashboards at this level to show building energy usage and things of that nature. What I want to point out on the left side is our space-based navigation. So I noted we're on the campus level, but as I drill into the building, if there's a graphic there, we'll show the graphic associated with that building or that floor, for instance, or that room. So this space-based design works really nicely to try to find information and locate the graphics in the system. I'm going to pop back up to my campus level, and we're going to go over to what I call the Spaces dashboard. So we're on the campus level still, but now we see a textual-based representation of the data in the campus level. And what I'm going to do is showcase our responsive-based design technologies. So I'm on a laptop computer right now, but let's say I wanted to access this software from a phone or a tablet. As long as I change the resolution, we automatically size elements down to match the client device that we've accessed the software on. So laptop, desktop, and that really makes this software usable on a phone or a tablet as you're walking the facility on the Wi-Fi network. So again, let's imagine I just logged in, and what I like to do, and I see a lot of operators do, is go to the potential problem areas. And this widget is designed to show all of the data that's in alarm, override, warning across the entire system at this level. So you can see in this case I've got an interactive report of kind of everything that's going on within the facility. I can filter down to look at overrides. So here's all the points in my system that are now currently in the override status. I can drill into the equipment to see what's going on further, or if I want, I can command the system to release that override, adjust it, or whatever, depending on the status of the system. So let's say I was going to release this, and what I can do now, and this is a new capability we've added into Metasys 8.1, is add a reason as to why I'm releasing this override. We can commit that change, and that note is now saved along with the audit entry in our database. So when you pull it up at a later point in time, you can see why things were changed in the system. I'm going to imagine now I've been logged in for a half an hour, maybe 15 minutes, a half an hour, and I get a hot or cold call. And there's an occupant in room 2 that says they're too warm or too hot. So I'm going to quickly go up to the top of our search bar and type in room 2. And what I did is pulled up the spaces dashboard for room 2. So I want to point out that if you look at the widgets that are there, our equipment serving space, potential problem areas, and equipment summary, you saw those at the campus level. These are the same set of widgets, but they're now filtered to only show data on room 2. So we've navigated to room 2, and I get this equipment serving space widget. And this shows the equipment that's serving room 2. So we have VAV 110 that serves room 2. We can tell that air handler 1 is serving VAV 110, and the plants that are serving those systems as well. And I can see critical data from those systems to determine where this issue is. It's likely that the problem is either maybe with the VAV or with the air handler. So I can see here the air handler is quite a bit off of the set point. I'm going to go in and maybe diagnose that air handler further by clicking this link. Or a lot of times we want to see what's going on the floor at this point. Maybe that problem is not localized to room 2, but it's affecting different parts of that floor. So let me navigate to our floor. And what you've got here, we've got a graphic associated with floor 1. And these are thermal graphics. So depending on if something is in low alarm, blue, high alarm, if it's in warning, for instance, these will light up depending on the colors that you've defined in the system so that you can identify issues really quickly. You can drill in and it'll show you some additional information, what the set points are in the high and low alarm limits and warning limits. And I can drill into this piece of equipment directly. I can also, if maybe I'm interested in just looking at the lighting in this area as well, and the call came in around lighting. Again, if we have different systems integrated into Metasys, we can create layers in our graphics editor, and we can turn lighting or HVAC or anything else off or on to segment the view just to those systems. I'm going to go over to our spaces dashboard for the floor because I want to look at a tabular view of all the data in the floor with our equipment summary. So these are all the terminal units currently located on floor 1. I can sort to show lowest, highest temperature. I can make changes in here, so anywhere you see a link in the system, we can make changes. But it basically shows me and allows me to compare like pieces of equipment in the system at any level. Okay, I've looked across the floor now. I don't think there's a problem with any of the terminal units, but I'm curious because the air handler was a little bit off a set point. So let's dive into that air handler. And when I click the air handler, I get a graphic, if we have a graphic configured for that unit. And what I want to show you is the detail of the symbols that we've used. The team has really done a good job here making the symbols world-class, and the performance and animations all work very well for our graphics library components. I can command through here, so if I see there's something that's wrong on through the graphic, I can make changes. I can switch graphics as well. We have different templates, so if I go to, maybe I have a more complex air handler that we drew out ductwork for, I can get to different views. Potentially there's multiple graphics associated to this unit as well for your central plant systems. Or I can go over now to what we call the equipment dashboard. So again, we've navigated to the air handler, we get the graphic, but if I scroll over, if I'm on my phone or on my laptop, I can scroll over and get to additional data that's all part of this piece of equipment. You can see trends through the equipment dashboard. With our trend viewer, you can get up to 1 year of data if that data's been stored in the historical databases. So we can go back in time, look at 7 days. You can go back further. It shows you the daily averages if we go back in time. I can drill into a particular day. So maybe on March 28th, I need to figure out what went on with this unit. So I can drill in, and now it's going to show me the hourly view of that day. I can drill in further if I need to, or maybe I'm just needing to create a report of this. So we can drop that report to an Excel file or a PDF. And what it's going to do is generate that PDF, and it's going to send it over to me, just like you're downloading a file from your web browser. And you get a really nice report coming from the system with the graph and the data that's backing that report. So we're really making it easier than ever to get data out of the Metasys system. If I want, I can change the points as well if I'm looking at maybe duct static pressure versus duct static pressure set point. So any point that's trendable in the system or that's trended would show up here for that piece of equipment. It's a view that gets populated automatically without configuration. It also shows me it's smart enough to realize there's a central plant that's serving this air handler. Maybe I want to look at the chilled water supply temperature that's coming into the cooling coil of this unit. It's one of the ways we're really saving clicks in the system. We next have the equipment activity. This is a timeline view of all the audits and alarms coming in for this piece of equipment. In a lot of the other interfaces out there that I've seen, there's typically like an audit viewer and an alarm viewer or manager. But what we've done is correlate the alarms and audits in this timeline view to show you that, when somebody changed this, it went into alarm. But if I click in, I can see that there was a temporary override, who did it, when they did it, and if there's any annotations associated with that action. I can filter from here as well if I just want to look at alarms versus user changes. But really a nice way to see, what's going on with this piece of equipment over time, and then being able to correlate that or those events with the trend widget on the left side. We then have our equipment relationships widget. This shows you, what VAV boxes this air handler serves, what spaces it serves, but it's a good way for a newer user to come in and really understand how the system's set up so that they don't make any changes they shouldn't be making. Because if this was serving a critical area such as an operating room or a critical space, we wouldn't want that user making changes. And of course there's authorization built in behind the scenes here, but at least for those newer users, they can understand what they would be affecting if they made a change to this air handler. Our equipment data widget on the bottom right here is basically anything in the building network for this air handler. I'm going to flip over to our alarm manager, and I want to show you the full screen alarm manager. So if I come up and I just go to /alarms, this brings up our full screen alarm manager. It's primarily used for operation centers. Sometimes a security guard will use this, because if the software logs out, this is still available. So it misses the chance that an alarm comes in and that operator or security guard doesn't see the alarm. They can't do anything if they're not logged in, but again, it's nice. I see a lot of customers keep this up on a separate monitor at all points in time to look for alarms on their critical equipment or spaces. We show the space that's affected with the alarm, so right away as an operator coming in here I can see the space and equipment, and that helps me kind of rack and stack which of these alarms are more critical, and I'm going to dive in and try to handle the most critical alarm. I can also see a summary on the right side, how many total alarms and what alarm priorities there are in the system. And that'll allow me to filter down on any of the alarm priorities. If there was a critical alarm 0 to 39 priority, I could click this and it would now update the table based on that priority range. So I'm going ahead, I'm clicking on an alarm in room 4. It's a temperature alarm. What we do is we roll up occurrences of the alarm, and over time, for instance, this unit might have been going in and out of alarm. The temperature, maybe there was a bad sensor or something. So we capture all those previous occurrences of the alarm. And what that does is it saves basically space in the table, and it allows us to really understand what is the most important alarm. Because we don't have to filter through pages and pages of data to understand how many times this alarm happened. We can see more details about the alarm, what triggered it, when it triggered, what its value was. But because we roll up those occurrences to one row in the table, I can acknowledge or discard all of these occurrences in one operation. So that saves a lot of time when we're handling and managing alarms. I can filter in the alarm manager. So one of the nice things we have is filtering by space or equipment. If I just want to see alarms in a certain part of the building, maybe in the main hospital versus the administration building, I can filter by just alarms coming from the main hospital. I can filter by priority. But when we use that filter, we can filter on maybe some of the nuisance alarms that come in, maybe a network offline or outage that had happened. I can filter on that, click all of those alarms. Maybe there's 1,000 alarms in the system, but I can acknowledge or discard all of those occurrences of alarms in one operation. So we're really trying to make it easy for our Metasys users to clean up the alarms that may have been in the system for a while, at the same time pointing them to the highest priority alarms based on how they've set up their alarm categories. There's exporting capability here as well, so there's an alarm report that can be run. Okay, I'm going to drill back into the application. So So we're on the campus. I'm going to click on the building because I want to just look to see how my schedules are set up on the building today and maybe on Saturday as well. So if I scroll over to my schedules widget, I now see all the schedules that are affecting this building or any piece of equipment that are affecting this building. I can see when those schedules are going to be occupied versus unoccupied, but it really allows me a quick way to identify outliers and make changes to schedules across the entire building or campus even. If I need to see what a schedule is doing on Saturday, I could just drill into that date and I can see that everything is unoccupied on Saturday. I'm going to drill into the floor 1 schedule. And this is what we call the weekly schedule. So what we've gone here is with more of a consumer scheduling experience. And this is similar to other scheduling applications out there in the industry. So again, as a newer user comes in and is seeing Metasys for the first time, this is really easy for them to understand when things are scheduled, when they're not scheduled, when there's exceptions notated by the slashed lines. It can affect holiday calendars as well. So if, for instance, on July 4th, if I needed to add a holiday calendar here, I can go in, change the active day for that calendar, and it updates accordingly. I can add exceptions, and I can also see which space and equipment is affected by this schedule. A lot of times, the interfaces I've seen, everyone's relying on the name of the schedule to figure out what it is. That really doesn't tell me what part of the facility or what equipment it's serving. So just understanding which schedule is serving which equipment and space is a really big deal. Go back to my schedule summary. Let's say I did need to make a change on Saturday. What I can do is select every schedule that's in this building, and I can issue a bulk exception, and that'll affect every single schedule in the facility. So I don't have to add exceptions or enable or disable schedules one by one anymore. I can do this in a bulk operation. So that saves the operator a lot of time when they're issuing schedule changes in the facility. Next thing I want to show is our spaces authorization. So if I come up into my user menu and go to user authorization, what I can do, I'll scroll down to my name. I can select a user, or I can copy and paste these settings between users. But I can remove access to the entire facility and then just give access to the part of that facility that that user needs. Maybe Ryan only needs access to floor 1. So within a couple of clicks, I've given them access to just floor 1. But that'll segment access to the facility and to the data. So in the spaces tree, they're only going to see the spaces and equipment that they have access to based on this authorization. This also filters the alarms as well. So users that have a certain authorization will only get alarms for that part of the facility or campus that they have access to. Discard those so I don't remove access for myself. Before we get into the graphics manager, I just wanted to show a couple examples of our newer graphics. So I'm going to search for our central plant optimization, CPO10. Real quickly again, use that searching capability. It really makes it easy to find information. But I pulled up the graphic for the central plant. I just want to zoom in a little bit on the graphic to show the level of detail with our symbols that we're using. Go back. And the level of detail on all the different components that we put into the new graphics capability. We do have terminal unit graphics, so if I navigate to a VAV box, for instance, this VAV box, this is an example of one of our terminal units. And the other thing I'll mention is that in addition to the new graphics capability, if you do have existing graphics, either Graphics Plus or standard graphics, we can pull those graphics into this interface, and they operate quite nicely alongside our new graphics as well. So preserving investment in your existing graphics if you've invested in either one of those graphics packages. So these are Graphics Plus graphics that we pulled in alongside our brand new Metasys UI graphics. But you can kind of see the change in the amount of detail and quality that goes into our new graphics, and I'm pretty happy with the way they've turned out. One of the nice things, let's say I either needed to make a change to this graphic or I wanted to add a graphic in the system. That's now done right within the Metasys user interface, and it's accessible through this graphics manager link at the top right. So if I click that, this opens up our graphics manager. This is available in the online and the offline mode. Doesn't require any software to be installed, no graphic generation tool or anything of that sort. But this is where you associate graphics to the spaces. So you can see here's our campus, building, floor. And you can see that the floor 1 graphic that we were viewing earlier is associated to floor 1. I can change these graphics out from here. I can edit them. I can add additional graphics in. Maybe there's 2 zones to the floor and I want 2 different graphics. I would go ahead and add a graphic right in here. This is our template library, so I just wanted to show a couple examples, but we don't anticipate everybody starting off from scratch, so we wanted to have a good place that everybody can start to build the graphic to save time. But we have a whole set of these templates that you can start building graphics from. I'll just go through a couple terminal units. Here's an example of a fan coil. We have water side templates as well. But you can create your graphics from these templates. These are in the software when you get it. Here's our master layer. So the concept of the master layer is that this is kind of like the background slide or in PowerPoint, if you're familiar with that. A lot of times our customers have multiple set points or temperatures that they want to put on the graphic. So in this case, we have the outdoor air temperature and humidity that we wanted to put on every single graphic. I edit it in one place, and this background now applies to all of the graphics on site. And I can decide to, on a one-by-one basis, if I want to use that graphic background or not. But really, it's one of the nice ways that we're making it easy to build graphics, so you're not have to, doing things one by one by one. We have the ability to import and export these graphics as well. So if you are making changes offline and you just want to import one of the graphics that you made changes with, we can do that through our Tools menu. So I'm going to go back to our Graphics tab. I'm going to go ahead, click down Floor 1, and I'll go to that Air Handler 1 here. So let's say I wanted to put another graphic here. I can start from an existing template or a copy of a graphic that might be in the system already. In this case, I want to start from a blank template. And when we hit Create, this brings us into our graphics editor. So this is a full-blown graphics editor. It's got all the sets of drawing tools. So all the basic shapes, arrows, things of that nature that you'd expect from a full-blown graphics editor. You can add images and backgrounds into this as well. We have a full-blown symbols library. I'm just going to walk through a few examples here. There's basic symbols. So these symbols, these are value boxes that might change, switches, fans. We've got a full set of airside symbols. So here's some examples of the coils that you can choose from. Fans. Chillers, cooling towers. We have even electrical symbols in the system, floor plan based symbols, fire lighting, our piping, terminal units and sensors, VRF systems, if you have an integrated VRF system, water valves and sensors. So we've really taken a lot of time. You can see the level of detail in these symbols. They animate. So, you know, if there's a status or something that's associated with these, they may animate depending on which symbol is there. I'm going to go back up to our packaged air handler and show you a couple of neat things with our graphics editor as well. So if I drag over two pieces of ductwork. So now this is similar to the graphic that you saw earlier. You saw that those components snap together. And one of the other things, we don't want people wasting time lining up symbols within the graphic. So we put this snapping capability in the system. So all these snap right into place pretty easily. They can be moved. You can see they follow the line. This goes for the air side systems as well as the water side. So if you're building or making changes to a central plant or a hot water plant or something like that, the piping and the water valves will all snap together. Sensors, those snap into place as well. We can build this up really quickly and bind the data to it really quickly. There's another feature with our binding. So if you do have a standard naming convention on site that's used, you match these names up and you don't have to do any binding anymore. This comes in for free basically. So if the name matches, the binding comes in and you're done. And it really makes it simple to build these graphics or make simple changes as well. Here's our layering. So I'm on the background layer now. I can decide whether or not to turn the master layer on. So if you see in the top right, the outdoor air temperature and humidity, I can turn that on or off. I can add additional layers into the system. So if I wanted a layer for the symbols, or if I'm on a floor plan and I wanted to put a layer for the lighting, I can add that layer in from here and change that to lighting, for instance, and put everything having to do with lighting on that floor plan. But these layers come in nicely because, again, it allows the user to hide and show things that they might not be looking for. So I'm going to get out of the graphics manager. And I'll go back to my campus dashboard. With the Metasys UI, what we're really trying to do is make it easier for the newer users to come in and learn where things are. With our space-based navigation and how we connect our graphics and other views with the space-based navigation and equipment dashboards, we really make it easy to navigate through the system without having to go through multiple graphics. We can quickly diagnose and find issues. We understand the users that are operating our systems are very busy. We want them to get into the system, find out what's going on, make changes, and then get on with their day. And we're doing that all without requiring any installed software for client devices. So you don't have to get your IT departments involved when you issue upgrades and things of that nature. Again, as always, Metasys UI, it sits on top of the existing Metasys server. So you can upgrade that server to Metasys 8.1, and then you'll get all this graphical editing capability built within the software, along with the annotations on commands and our trending enhancements. Okay, that concludes our demo. So Jane, have you got any questions for us?
We certainly have. We received a lot of great questions, but we do still have some time left. So for those of you who have not yet submitted your questions, please continue to do so through the chat or the Q&A feature at any point. But we'll dive right in here with the questions, Ryan. So one question we got was, can users remotely edit the graphics, or do they need to be logged into Metasys to do that?
The users can edit graphics through our online interface. So if they have access permission to do so, they can get to the graphics manager right from the online, or if they're on a laptop or something and they're having to work at home or remotely, they can install the Metasys UI offline with our SCT, the System Configuration Tool, and they'll get that capability to make those changes offline, where they can commit those changes at any time they need to.
Okay, great, thank you. And can you confirm, do you still need to access Metasys through the launcher, or is it accessed through an IP address?
The Metasys user interface, the web interface that we just shown, is accessed through one of our web browsers such as Google Chrome, Safari, Internet Explorer, that's installed on the machine. At this point, most of the operators on site can use the Metasys web interface. There is some enhanced functionality for advanced control specialists such as system administrators that you can go to our site management portal. If that user needs to get at something more advanced or a network configuration in the system, they would use the launcher to get into the site management portal. But that only really needs to be installed on a couple of machines or technician laptops in the facility.
Okay, great. And does this Metasys version of Metasys, is it built on top of an API?
Yeah, underneath the scenes with the Metasys UI, we develop everything on a internal REST-based API, so the APIs are there.
Okay, and is the UI HTML5 based?
This UI is fully HTML5 based, built off of HTML5 JavaScript, and the graphics bring SVG. So we don't require any Java plugins, any Silverlight plugins to view the new graphics, to edit and manage and create new graphics, or to view any of the existing Graphics Plus or standard graphics in the system. So at this point, there's no software required. You can open up your laptop, your tablet, using Safari or Internet Explorer that's installed, and access everything within the software.
Okay, great, thank you. You mentioned advanced graphics and Graphics Plus briefly. So for graphics that were built using the Graphics Generator tool, or GGT, can those be imported as well?
Graphics that were created using the Graphics Generation tool, GGT, those are our Graphics Plus graphics. So those can be pulled in to this web interface without requiring Silverlight or other plugins.
Okay, great. And can you add comments on the graphics screens? So for an example, could you add a comment that reads something like, this air handler supply air is controlled by return air temperature?
Yes, we can add comments in. So it's as simple as opening up the graphics editor and typing in a comment. But keep in mind, there's also areas on that same, for instance, air handler dashboard. If we went to the equipment dashboard, we scrolled over, we can add annotations alongside the alarms and audits as well. So we have a couple of different capabilities for adding notes or annotating graphics into the system.
Okay, great. And you mentioned earlier in the presentation, Ryan, that you can use the UI on a number of different devices. Is 8.1 available on Android devices?
Yes, the 8.1 is supported on Android devices. I believe there are a certain, like such as the Samsung Galaxy, that we do extensive testing on. So it works on a number of those devices. They're in our literature, and it likely works on an array of many more devices. But we do test to the standard Android devices.
Okay, you talked a little bit about how you can access the UI. So why wouldn't someone be able to find this on the Android Play Store?
This software does not require any applications or installed software, so you can access it via the web browser on the phone. A lot of the IT departments that we're working with are actually locking down even the tablets and phones that are on their mobile networks, and they're locking them down to the point that they can't get to the App Store or can't install software. So we didn't want to go with that constraint with this interface. So simply open up the web browser, type in the URL on your Android device using Google Chrome, and it will allow you to access the software.
Great. And is this version of the user interface fully compatible with Active Directory users configured already in Metasys?
Yes, we do support the Active Directory accounts that are configured in Metasys already with Metasys UI.
Okay, great. Okay, you already mentioned that you can import the advanced graphics into 8.1.
The advanced graphics we cannot import into Metasys 8.1 into the web interface. The advanced graphics continue to be supported within our site management portal interface.
Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification. Are the annotations only available on commands, or are they part of the object as well?
So annotations are available on the audit entry or the alarms, but they're not available on the actual underlying Metasys object itself within the Metasys UI.
Okay. Is there a pre-built holiday calendar that users can use and go through and then select which calendars are observed by their organizations?
Our calendars are based on the BACnet standard for scheduling. So what you get is you can add a calendar out of the box, but you do have to add the active days to that calendar.
Okay, great. Thank you. And maybe you can just touch on the different operating systems and browsers one more time that Metasys 8.1 works on. Specifically, is it supported on Apple iOS? Is it supported on Chrome? And is it supported in IE, or Internet Explorer?
It's supported in IE 11, supported in Google Chrome. I believe it's version 54 or later. Supported on iOS and Safari. I'm not clear on the exact versions, but we can get that sent out in a follow-up.
Okay, great. Thank you. Does the system have military time, or can the user switch to military time if they wanted to?
The system allows you to change the locale, the language in locale, using something called a lip tool. And I believe one of the options in there is to allow you to change to a locale that uses the military time or the 24-hour date and time format. But again, let's clarify that.
Okay, great. So we've got a lot of questions around whether or not customers at sites without an ADS or an ADX, can they access any of these features that you presented today with the latest release of Metasys 8.1?
The Metasys UI is supported either on an ADS or ADX, so a server is required to be able to gain the benefit of the Metasys UI.
Okay, great, thank you. And so kind of veering off of the user interface specifically, but you did mention that at this release there's improved BACnet support. Can you expand just a little bit on what we mean by that?
Yeah, so we improved our BACnet support to encompass the protocol revision 12. We added a couple of items such as the Open Data Server, the Metasys ODS, into that classification as well, that the 8.0 release brought us already up to.
Yeah. Okay. And then can functions, going back to the user interface, can functions be added to alert users to higher than usual amp draw or motor temperature?
Absolutely. We can set up an alarm in the system to alarm on a certain threshold associated with that electrical meter. That alarm would then show up in the alarm manager with whatever priority we assign to it that we showed earlier. It could also be sent over text message via email, pager, printer, or the SNMP if there's a network monitor as well.
Okay, great, thanks. And we talked a little bit about times and different types of time, like military time. Can you switch the temperature degree from Celsius to Fahrenheit or Fahrenheit to Celsius?
That is a capability of our system. It's done on an object-by-object basis, so it can be done, but it would require some configuration changes.
Okay. And are there global commands to control economizers in mild temperatures?
Our global commanding is still done through the Site Management Portal interface at this release.
Okay. Could they use the Site Management Portal to control economizers then in mild temperatures?
Yeah, if you're looking at global commanding a whole bunch of states within those units, for instance, you can do that with Site Management Portal in one operation and turn those units into the economizer mode.
Okay. When a user is creating graphics and binding, what happens if he or she doesn't have a standard naming convention? Can the names be changed from equipment to equipment?
Yeah, there's a find and replace feature that typically gets used with our Metasys UI offline mode and SCT, and that can be used to change the naming standard. The templates that we have will match the naming standards coming out of the controller configuration tool that's used to program the field controllers. But if there are some deviations, that can be adjusted in our graphics manager.
Okay. And then is the Ready Access Portal, or RAP, done? That still exists?
Ready Access Portal is supported at release 8.1. It will be the last release of Ready Access Portal.
Okay, great, thank you. Just paging through some of the questions here. Let's see. All right, let's page back over here. So one question we did receive, are user notes searchable? For example, if a user puts in a keyword in the notes field, would the notes come up in the search query?
User notes are not searchable, but again, if there's a change through like potential problem areas, you'll quickly see that you can drill into the equipment dashboard where we have all of the data that encompasses that particular, for instance, air handler. And when you see the note in context of what was happening over time, that helps diagnosing the issue. That is an item that we'll take a piece of feedback down on, because I think it's a good idea. Okay,
great. Another question on user notes, can the system be set up to require an annotation on an override or change?
Yeah, required annotations are not supported in this release of Metasys user interface. They can be turned on with the Metasys validated environments in conjunction with our site management portal.
Okay, great, thank you. With the graphics capability, can you stack items sideways instead of stacking, vertically or on top of one another?
I'm not sure I understand that question fully. If we could get some clarification from who sent that question, we can update that and send that out with the follow-up.
Okay, thanks. And are multiple graphics aliased, or is every graphic created individually?
Graphics can be aliased. So behind the scenes, what we do when we configure the Metasys UI, all, for instance, VAV boxes or all fan coils, they get an equipment definition. And what we do with the graphic is we take that graphic and apply it to the equipment definition, and all of a sudden all those VAV boxes that are in the Metasys UI get that same graphic. And along with that, we'll hide and show symbol elements. Again, depending, let's say there's a VAV that was a cooling only, we're going to automatically hide that cooling coil on the unit that's a cooling only. On the unit with the reheat coil, we'll show that symbol. But there's only one graphic that would drive that. You can also override graphics on an individual basis through what we call exception graphics.
Okay, great, thank you. Does the interface support tagging, tag searches, and commanding, such as Project Haystack tagging?
Our spaces and equipment are tagged in the system, so we don't support the Project Haystack tagging, but the infrastructure behind the scenes with our equipment and spaces and the normalization that we do behind the scenes drives a lot of the functions that we're looking for from a user experience standpoint, such as navigating and quickly finding information.
Okay, great, thank you. And so we'll take this one last question, and I realize we didn't get a chance to address all of your great questions that continue to come in. So we'll make sure that we issue a frequently asked questions document shortly after the live event so that we can make sure that we get all of your questions answered. But that said, for our last question of the day, Ryan, if someone were to upgrade to 8.1, what kind of configuration work should they be expecting? If you could touch on that at sort of a high level, that'd be good to understand.
Yeah, for an existing site that might be at a previous release of Metasys, you upgrade to 8.1, what we do is we'll create spaces. So you saw the spaces navigation that we use, and we create equipment objects and equipment definitions. We have an auto discovery process that helps convert basically what we, the building network, or sometimes referred to as the all items tree, into equipment objects using the definition. So we do have to set that up, but once that's set up, the UI can utilize all those relationships and build the equipment serving space widgets and automatically and space navigation, and build graphics on top of that as well. So when you look at the overall configuration with the new graphics paired with equipment and spaces, it's a really nice way to configure the system and drive standardization of naming conventions and things of that nature.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So with that concludes our demo. Once again, we thank you very much for your time today. Again, just one final reminder that a recorded version of today's session will be made available to you later this week, again, for any of your colleagues or teammates that may not have been able to join, as well as that FAQ document that I just mentioned earlier, addressing any of the questions we didn't have time to answer today. If you would like more information on Metasys 8.1 in the meantime, we certainly invite you to visit the URL you see posted to the screen. That's just connect.johnsoncontrols.com/Metasys 8.1. Once again, thank you so much for your time, and have a wonderful day.